Welcome to the Scaleup Valley podcast, where we bring the best of the best to help you scale your business from 1 million to 1 trillion. Today's guest is Casper, the CEO of Monta. Casper, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's really a pleasure, and you have an amazing story and a lot of lessons learned scaling up companies and starting up and scaling up your own VC-backed company. Now in a very exciting space, but I will let you introduce yourself and Monta to the community.
Yes, thank you very much. So as you said, my name is Casper, and I'm originally an engineer. Worked the last 10 years as a CTO, built up an agency out of Copenhagen, scaled it to 6 countries, built a lot of mobile apps, websites, backends for other companies, and exited that company in 17. And then I was in the new company for 3 years, we sold to. And then I was looking for something new, and that's where I picked up on this EV charging space. So I have an EV myself, had that for 5-6 years now. So pretty familiar with the space, but never saw myself as someone participating in it until like 18 months ago. That was when I started picking up on it. So the EV growth was starting to happen in the Scandinavian markets. You could see that the sales of the EVs was really picking up.
Just sorry to interrupt, but just for the ones who are a little bit more distracted, EV stands for electric vehicles, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, sorry for that. Yeah, electric vehicles. Yes. Yes, exactly. So we could see. So we looked at the market and saw, okay, it could be the year it's happening, and then we opened. We bought a couple of charge points, the component used to charge the vehicles, and opened them up to see how they were built and how they worked, and then from that point we came up with a concept about building this platform where EV owners and charge point owners could meet and share charge points with each other that way, a little bit like Airbnb, but for charge points. So that was kind of the concept of the entire thing. Now it's 18 months down the road and things have changed. We still have that concept as like a big part of the product, but it's much more B2C focused today instead.
That's an amazing opportunity that is really growing in the Scandinavian region, but also in other everywhere in the planet, right? So there are
exactly. It's really exploding everywhere. Yeah.
But for the ones who are not so familiar, for instance, Norway, I think that we discussed that is quite advanced in that measure, for instance, right?
Yeah, in Norway, I think last month was 80% of all the new cars sold was EV.
Incredible. Yeah. So just for the ones who are listening to get an idea about how mature the market is getting there. And it's not the same in all regions yet, but those numbers are going up and up and up. And that's what we see, an expanding total addressable market. That's what all the VC-backed companies want to explore, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's. I think 18 months ago we were probably hoping that it would be a little bit slower, and so we had more time to build up. But now it's kind of exploding everywhere. Like Italy was like 2 months ago was the country in Europe which was faster. It had the fastest growth in absolute numbers in EVs, and so it's everywhere right now. Central Europe, South Europe, US.
Right. And the company is very recent, so still not yet 2 years, right? And the explosion and the growth has been quite spectacular during just a short period of time. You have recently raised a Series A. Tell us more about what happened in this last not yet 2 years.
Yeah. Yes. So it started in the summer of 2020, where we were kind of, like as I said, like looking into the market, and then I think in late August we kind of decided to go for it. So the first thing we figured out was that we probably need some capital. It will be tough to do this organically. So we went out and spoke to a lot of angel investors, early stage funds, and then we settled with the angel investor, which is also the CEO in Pleo, a big Danish unicorn. So a guy I worked with previously. So it was a pretty short process to actually get to the pre-seed money and get the company set up from that. So we established the company in October, had the money in the bank account in November, and then kind of just started from there. And then the first 3-4 months was all about building. So we hired a lot of the product engineers we worked with previously, me and my co-founder, so we could get going really fast. And both of us are tech savvy, so we can also jump in and code. So more or less the entire company was coding for a few months. And that, I think that was a big upside that we managed to get to market really fast. Already in January 21, we launched the beta and then took it out of beta 1 month after. And then it started picking up pretty fast in Denmark. That was our launch market, the home market. And within a few months, we actually felt that we managed to find a pretty decent product fit. We started working more with straight to B2B, getting partners in, which are setting charge points up, installers, wholesalers, charge point operators. So we pivoted the product more into that and built a whole web solution for them as well. And when that was in place, we were like, we felt really good about the products. We were like, let's try to raise a seed round already now. So we did that, and we managed to land that at like 4.3 million euros in April. So only 3 months after we launched beta. And then we could really scale the team up. So at that point we were 9 people, but we scaled the team up in a few months to 30, 40 people, opened new countries. So that was really what the summer was all about, setting up entities in Sweden and Norway and UK. And then later in the fall, we opened up in Germany as well in November. So I think that's the story there. And then like on the fundraising side, after we came back from the summer vacation, we could see that the product fit was really good in Sweden, Norway, and UK, the countries we kind of started in after Denmark. So we felt really good about it. So we're like, should we try to already do a series already? It seems a bit crazy, but like we're up against some really big companies in this space. Like you have the OEMs on one side, but you also have the utilities. You have the Shell New Motion players as well. You have ChargePoint, which IPO'd out of US. So we're like, if we have to battle these kind of competition, we need some how say muscle behind us. So that's why we've been like scaling really fast and getting to a size pretty fast. So for example, like last month, we won like some big tenders here in Scandinavia. So Copenhagen Airport, like the Royal Mail of Scandinavia, PostNord. And that is now because we're not looked at as a startup with 10 people now. Now we are at a good size. I think there's 75 employees full-time now. And that will be 90 within a few months. And scaling it up to around 150 this year.
That's really an amazing story. So we would say that already spectacular growth would be to go from round to round in 12 to 18 months. So you are already at A and moving into B with 18 months, let's say. So you have done what typically is seed to A since the 0 to A, right? So
yes, yeah.
a successful transition from seed to A, let's say, from 0 to A. So which is really amazing. Any lessons learned in each of those chapters? For instance, at pre-seeds, I imagine that there are a lot of executives out there working for VC-backed companies that want to do their own thing. and they're thinking, oh, maybe I'm better at scaling up. I'm not sure if I'm ready to go again into idea modes and explore this opportunity. I have my career in place. I have my family mortgage and expenses, the kids, and so on. So in one side, I really want to do this, but in other side, maybe it's better to stay in my scale-up career and be in a little bit more mature company. So what have been some of your lessons raising this very early on angel round, let's say pre-seed round?
So I was in the same dilemma right after we sold the agency. I stepped in as a group CTO. I had 800 people on my teams. So in a very, very good position, very well taken care of by the new company, both in packages and like warrants. But I think it was really the eager and the motivation to get back and try to build something from scratch again and build something around the product instead of only people. So yeah, I knew that I wanted to do that at some point. So I was really just waiting for the moment to do it. It was an amazing job I had. I was actually really enjoying it. A lot of cultural challenges, which is really interesting to work with. But when I stumbled upon this concept, I also knew that it's not in 2 years. Like this is happening now if you want to jump on that train. Mm-hmm. So I think the learnings was like, you can run it a little bit undercover in the beginning. We had the company set up, we had the funding, we had everything in place before I actually resigned. And then next to that, save up some money because you're not going to be able to take your CXO salary with you into a pre-seed startup. It will take some time to get back on track in like package wise. But of course, a lot more upside into it, but also a lot more risk.
Exactly. And then the transitions. So then you were very quick into being able to build that MVP, of course, also because you have a technical background as CTO. So of course you were able to know very quickly how to recruit a small team of engineers to work with you, so you could lead that team. So maybe for the ones who are more business oriented and less technical oriented, it might be a little bit more challenging. But nowadays also companies trying to be founded as a couple, right? The business person, the technical person. In your case, both of you have a technical background and a business background at the same time that you have developed over the years. But what was the learnings into that transition from pre-seed into seed? Maybe that's the question.
So I think the fast go-to-market is extremely important to test out the idea really, yeah, and see how it behaves, right? So you need that mindset when you sit with the product. So you build all the things which is 100% necessary. If it's like, for example, in the beginning, you could create charge points, but you couldn't delete them. Like, that was really how we thought about things, right? Just getting the happy path ready, getting that out, tested it, and then learn from that. We built a lot of features which we removed pretty fast because we thought that it was important, but no one used them or was something else they preferred. Also, even though we had access to a lot of senior engineers from our networks, we still augmented the team, meaning that we took my old company's like a department in Bangladesh with 5 guys helping us. So that way we could kind of get going from the beginning, right? We didn't have 3 months lead time to get people in and all that. Right. I think that's been a big advantage as well. We actually still have them with us more than one of the guys is 1.5 years now. He's probably the one who's done most like the earliest commits on the project. So I think that's a good idea as well. If you have a company you trust and you can augment them, I wouldn't go in and buy like one-off projects for fixed price and anything like that. Just get someone and pay a monthly deal with them, and then they work with you as team members, right? I think that can be a fast way of scaling up in the beginning. But yeah, I think the biggest challenge we had, because we were so tech savvy, was also to build up the commercial departments. where we knew how to do like enterprise level sales, partnership sales, but how to really build this up in a digital process. That was something we picked up on. It's not the perfect solution to be all in on product only. I think there's this balance you need to strike. I think we were lucky in terms of timing with this industry as well. So there was a lot of VCs really looking into how to put some money into EV charging or EVs, and we were one of the very few ones with a pure software solution. I think that also helped us a bit. There's a lot of tailwind in this industry now, but it's also the disadvantage is like the value chain have not been really settled yet. So it's all over everywhere. It's very hard to understand how it works.
So I would summarize important things to think about. It's really the opportunity itself. It is clear that is exploding. The timing, of course, associated with the opportunity, and for the ones who are considering to invest, also the execution risk of the team. So as you guys have done this before and are passionate about it, and also as we discussed, exchanged a very stable career into this. This shows a lot of belief, and I would say that you were able to convince one of the best founders in the industry in Denmark. This also helps in a way. This kind of people usually have some knowledge about the space and will not invest in any company that they don't see potential, right? So there are some.
Yes. I think for sure, and I think like another really good learning was that we hired people who was very senior in the beginning, so we didn't have to spend a lot of time on onboarding and following up and micromanaging anything like that. So we could really trust people a lot that they could, and then people who are mostly interested in executing tasks instead of necessarily leading or building or doing strategy. Even the day-to-day, that's what we try to look for, right? We don't know what 6 months look like yet, so we don't need that many people to sit and try to look into the crystal ball. We need to try out a lot of ideas, right?
This is a good point, and I would say it's also one of the main challenges at a certain time when we are really, I would say, even post Series A or even post Series B, that we are used now to lead the team, by the way, and to ensure that everyone is on the same page, that we have the rhythms in place, the OKRs, and so on. Then getting back into starting from the scratch and really testing out things and executing without a secure platform, without any safety net. This is quite dramatic for some personalities. So how are you able, because I see that you were missing that, right? So you were missing to be more close to the execution, being able to change things and see things evolve. But how do you find those profiles who have that experience in scaling up, but also are comfortable with starting up, which is a completely different mindset, right?
Yes, yeah. I think there needs to be that feeling inside of you every day when you go to work and saying like, I would like to get closer to like the production or the engineering or something. Otherwise, that it's probably not the right decision. So that's like hunger for that needs to be there. And definitely in the beginning, like even still today, like it is a lot of execution. It's not a lot of meetings and strategy sessions and those things I'm more used to. But there's some extremely cool things about it, right? That I knew from the beginning that in this job I wanted to be closer to product. So that meant that the organization you're building up, you can do it around that. So you can be CEO and still spend 4 hours with product every day. But then you need to get a really good CEO, someone to run legal, finance, marketing, commercial, sales, all the other things needs to be hired, right?
This is a good point. A CEO that wants to stay connected with his core expertise needs to have a complementary partner, kind of a COO that can take care of all the other things where the CEO might not add so much value and it is not also his passion. So he is able to impact more the bottom, the company in the area where he can add the most value. So this is also an exercise of self-awareness. So where I can do the most impact and what I'm more passionate about, right?
Exactly, like at least for us starting a company up from scratch, that was not a 40 hours a week. It's probably the double, right? So you need to set it up in a way where you can get some energy from it. Like, and if you get energy from designing UI or writing pitch decks or whatever you like make sure you bake that into the day, right? There will be a lot of other tasks you don't enjoy doing as well. So mix that up is my recommendation for sure.
Right. And for the CTOs, and I think that this applies to any other executives in other functions of the company that want to do the leap and to become CEOs of their own companies. So what were some of the skills and some of the lessons learned being part of your time, the CEO of Monta?
So I think if you look at a CTO as I did previously, right? When we are 10 people as a CTO, you're pretty much a senior engineer architect, right? And when you have 150 people, it start being more commercially, like at least strategy. But when you're 1,200 people, it's more or less a leadership role with a lot of commercial in it, right? So I spent a lot of my times in client meetings, winning the big deals, persuading partnerships, those kind of things. And I think that is something I used here in Monta as well, and I actually enjoyed doing it as long as it's maybe 1 or 2 hours a day. I'm doing that. So here I still have a few of the big accounts. I'm running after some of the big customers, potential customers as well. So doing sales work, and I think that is to be expected, right? That you need to. One thing is work with customers, but also work with like the ones who are going to pay the show, right?
Exactly. And in a certain way, in your previous role, you already have, as you were saying, very connected into, of course, leading teams, but also interacting with the customer. And here it's really being very close to the product and to the customer. So you can ensure that there is a fit between what the customer wants or needs and what the product is able to deliver. But good points here that we discussed about the pre-seed. I think that in the pre-seed, in your case, it was really, the opportunity was so clear and so evident, and the timing was so right, and the team was in place. It was really to have the right angels around you and to create a strong value proposition deck or a kind of a pitch deck that explains the opportunity, why now, and the team. Then it was really about really going from pre-seed into seed, having that MVP quickly launched in just 3 months and having good feedback from it. Then raising the seed round, and after that we didn't discuss from seed to A. What do you think you have done? You and your team, of course, have done extremely well to be able to raise this last A round.
So I think the main thing which showed was that the product had the potential for big scale. It also was there was also a product fit in other countries. Then us as founders would be able to attract a leadership team around us in other positions than our like home fields. So me and Anders, my co-founder, that we could set up that we could attract one of the best CEOs in the world, one of the best CCOs, and build that leadership team up. So that was the things we had to show together with somewhere close on like 40% accelerated growth month on month, right?
Right. So this round is much more not only about opportunity and the feedback of the product, but much more about the capacity to attract one, two, or three high-level executives to the leadership team and have the first, let's say, core leadership team, or LT 1.0, as I like to call it. And at the same time, of course, have the metrics in place that show the traction. And in terms of the geographical expansion, start understanding where you will bet the growth from A to B, and of course from B to C, in terms of going from, let's say, 1 to 10 million in revenue, right? Is this a good summary?
Yeah, yes, I think it's pretty spot on in terms of that, right? This is still the entire EV space is still very young, right? It's less than 0.5% of the fleet. So it's hard to get really strong revenue numbers in right now, but it's getting big market shares, getting a good GMV, like see that the product is getting used, the platform is getting used a lot. That was the core things for the A round to show, together with the team, of course, and the product is something you can build on top of, right? And now it's for this round, it's much more about showing that now we can actually make a really good business in our home market, turn that into like a high revenue country, and then invest a lot in UK, Germany, 2 big markets, to show that we also we can also participate in the competition in the big countries, not just the small Scandinavian countries. And then we will continue the momentum in opening new countries, but we will not go for any big ones, like, let's say, like that. I think UK, Germany is the big bets this year.
Right.
To really not just double down like it's 5x or something in investments, or 10x investments in those countries.
Kind of C2A really attracting those initial customers, those initial fans of the early adopters, let's say, closer to your domestic market in Scandinavia, and proving also the expansion to Norway and Sweden. And now it's really going into one of the largest markets or 2 of the largest markets in Europe, the UK and Germany, to prove a larger business case, right? And maybe here I would say the ones who are listening would ask the question: this seems European expansion in the short term. Do you consider what is happening, for instance, in California, in the US, with the explosion of the industry there? So what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, of course, we followed very carefully, right? So we did like a huge assessment this year to decide what to go for. And I think it really boils down to a few things, like, right, what is the EV adoption looking like? How is the competition looking? What is the how is the appetite for investments? Like, is the government backing this heavily in the countries, right? And then what is the localization task? And for localization task for us, it's not just language and currency and those things which are fairly simple, tax regulation, but it's also supporting the charge points, local charge points. And that's where US would change everything. Like, it's a different power grid. We don't have the same access to data for pricing a lot of electricity. So it's a fairly big one. So at the point we want to do US for sure, but at the point you do it, we need to be able to deploy millions in the same round and go in with a fairly big team to make an impact. Otherwise, we will just spend a lot of time localizing something without being able to attract any customers.
So having cleared what are kind of the criteria to attack the markets, and how to select the priorities for the markets. Because I think it's also important to look at those markets as kind of startups, new startups, right? And select the risk. So maybe some of them might be a better bet a little bit later, in terms of thinking about the kind of a vision reverse engineering exercise. So in the midterm, we would go into this market, but in the short term, let's still explore or scale up in this market. Right? while we start up in a larger market, but we know that the results of that market we will need a little bit of time to get results from that market, right?
Yes, and also be honest internally, right? If you try to do too many things in the beginning with too few hands, you're gonna fail all of it. So that's also a consideration.
And especially, I think that's one of the issues. Having this balance. That of course, when you are being very successful, you start maybe underestimate the difficulty of the next steps that you need to give after, and not getting too serious about ourselves just because we were able to raise a round with such important investors. So this is kind of part of the past. Now we need to prove again that we are able to get into the next stage, and it seems easy from the outside, but we know that we are emotional creators, and sometimes it's difficult to stay cold in those emotional situations, right?
Yes, yeah, of course, and also I think at least in the game we are in right now, it's very aggressive growth targets, right? We have to somewhere from the last month in last year to the last month in this year, it's probably 12-13x on like charge points connected, right? So it's a lot, right? So that's not just the market growing, right? It's also you getting a lot more, us getting a lot more market shares.
This is an important point that you just shared. Of course, we have the kind of the SaaS playbooks, the marketplace playbooks, etc. But when an industry is quite new, and of course the appetite for that industry is also huge, we need to be able to define what are the success metrics. And some of the success metrics that you have been talking about, a lot of times that's also the difficult part. We need to understand what are those success metrics apart from revenue that will lead into revenue later on in the game, and how can we be the first in conquering that industry? Not maybe the first, but the first that is able to go from early adoption into early, almost mainstream, right? And being early on the game, but not too early, that you are not able to have cash enough to be there for a very long time.
Yes. Yeah. So it's exactly that balance, right? I think we can see as some of the participants in this industry right now have been starting 10 years ago, right? So they've been running many years where there was no EVs, but they managed to build a lot of things. But now it's also like legacy, most of it already, right? So they're in that situation. So timing sure was key for us. I think in the perfect world, we've probably been in 1 year earlier. To get even more mature at the point, right? Because now it's already starting to be like big public tenders, where a bit more of maturement in like being ISO certified and like having like all your contracts in place and having a couple of years with an annual report and things like that can show some things, right? Where today that's one of our problems.
Just to give a little bit of perspective, there is a space that I like a lot, which is the mental health space. And we see that a lot of the companies who have started early now are already at post Series B, Series C, really going mainstream into all targets. And nowadays we start seeing popping up a lot of players in more vertical segments. I see just serving teens or just serving universities. So really trying to verticalize an opportunity that is now going mainstream. And it might be already too late to build a marketplace to connect psychologists or therapists with mental health patients in that space. And having the timing right, I would not. It's really an art, and it's very difficult to do, right? And I'm just sharing an example that it's very, and of course from region to region it's different. So nowadays we see just in Southeast Asia it's really more at Series A, fewer players, but in the US we have East Coast, West Coast. In Europe as well, we have players in the UK, in Germany, in France, in Spain. Sorry, you wanted to say something?
No. I think like agreeing 100% on timing. I think for us, we can't really take the credit for that, right? Because that was more a coincidence. That it was not because we have been sitting and monitoring this for 6 years, and then like now is the time, right?
That is a good point as well.
Exactly right. Because as I said, I've been one of the earlier EV owners, and I didn't even see it right before last summer. So
exactly. So that's the story. Amazing. So we are getting to kind of the final questions that we love to cover. So if you would have an opportunity to have a coffee with yourself, what advice would you offer to your younger self at the beginning of the company?
So like 2 years ago or something.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I think the advice would still be go for it. It's been an amazing time. Like I've been enjoying it so much, but it's screwing your work life. I was working a lot and flying a lot in my last job, but now it's more like it's filling up your head all the time. You're thinking about it all the time. So spend a lot of time with friends and families before you go into this. It might be, I think COVID timing have been very lucky for us since social distances have been in place anyway, but and then like I think we did it right with kind of sprinting through the first phases. So far I'm happy with that decision. Let's see in a few years when we sit here again, that was the right thing to do. So I think on that, and then I think on fundraising, I think that's why I learned a lot, right? Because I'd never tried that previously. The agency I was building up, we did that organically. So fundraising is a lot, and you hear so many things from different people. So spend some time investigating a lot of things before you get into that. Don't jump on the first and the best, even though it seems like an amazing deal. And then I think a lot of promises. So really look into what you're getting in your contract more than what you get in promises. I think we've been very lucky with Jeppe Rendum and his wife Louise, which is a board member in the company, a board chairman in the company today. That they've been supporting us a lot. She's been here once a week, a full day. So with that, you've been really lucky. But I also had a lot of other angel investors from the seed round. I never barely talked to them, right?
What are you the most proud of during this journey with Monta?
I think what I'm most proud of is like the year we launched in Denmark was also the same year that we managed to really be seen as the biggest competition, and for all the ones who've been there for 10 years. That we are hearing from a lot of others that they see us as the biggest competition. I think that is that we're very proud of, that we managed to make such a good footprint in the first year. And then I think I'm very proud about how we built up the company. We have like extreme amount of transparency. Everyone can see everyone's salaries. We share everything with everyone.
This is great.
And I think that's been a nice thing to kind of start over. When you build up a company over 10 years, things are happening, which is really hard to redo, because now you have a lot of people hired, they're expecting this and this. But when you kind of start it up from scratch, spend some time thinking about how you would like this company to work out. So the first small team of 5 people we put together, we took them all in the summer house for 2 days, where we actually have a session on this, like what values do we want this company to have. And we decided on 5 different light towers at that point, which we are still today like showing every new employee. This is what Monta is about when you come in here. Yeah.
And how many open positions now, by the way?
So I think there's like 20, 30 open positions at the moment. We're hiring crazy, yes. So any amazing backend engineers, please poke me on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. It sounds an amazing opportunity. And worst advice ever received?
Yeah, so you you talked about that last week as well. Like, and so I think, to be honest, like from outside, I don't think we received any super bad advice that we followed. At least we were about to get scared. There have been a handful of scammers trying to kind of offer us money somehow, right? We managed to dodge, but I think the biggest error we did was to underestimate customer support completely. Like in the beginning, me and my co-founder, we were like, yeah, we just install intercom on our phones and then we do it ourselves. And then like 3 months down the line, we were like always on our phones when you were home. So that was a big problem, right? And today that team is like 20 people sitting with onboarding and customer support. So completely huge mistake underestimating that.
Amazing, but you have learned fast. You have corrected it. So, favorite book?
So I'm not a huge reader actually. I most of the books I actually have read have been about like technology. So the last book I read was about server-side Swift, so Apple's programming language. Yeah.
Amazing, got it. And finally, favorite series or favorite movie, wherever.
So I enjoy the HBO series Silicon Valley a lot. I watched a few times. It still gives me a good laugh. So like that, can only recommend that.
Casper, it was really a pleasure to have you on the show, and I can't wait to have you back to share your journey from A to B and beyond. So thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you very much for having me.
And to our community, we keep being here for you and bringing the best of the best to make your life a little bit easier, scaling up your company. See you soon and keep scaling.